Welcome to the DevReady Podcast, where we're helping non-techs build better tech. Today, we're talking to a founder, Slaven, from the Coaching Center. He's the managing director and has spun out a product to help connect coaches to executives and even people within business from a coaching perspective. Slaven, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Anthony, for inviting me.
Slaven, let's take back before technology. Generally, when we go ahead and build something, there's a problem, some sort of problem state or something that comes along the journey. How did you stumble across that? That's probably the first thing that is always where we start and begin when we start this journey of product development.
Yeah, it was probably trying to solve a problem, being in a coaching and executive coaching space for quite some time. And it's a bit of a challenge. So everyone sees the benefit. I see benefit all the time. And when I ask executives what's the reason, if they see so many benefits, they don't offer the same opportunity to more leaders within their organization. That funding has always been that obstacle that they sort of kind of pointing towards. And that's how it all started. So I'm very passionate about leadership, very involved in that area. I can see the benefit and I can see the impact that leaders could have, a positive or negative impact on people around them. So I got to the drawing board and started thinking how to make coaching more accessible to more leaders. And that's where the journey started.
Yeah, I haven't always, but I've had coaches along the journey of business, and yeah, it's quite fascinating. A lot of the blockers are you and what's in your way. You learn that over the journey. So I think there's definitely value here. I think the cost component can be significant depending on who you're actually working with. So how did you, like from a technology standpoint, let's talk a bit about the tech and how you started thinking about being a technology solution. Why couldn't it just be a collection of coaches that got distributed? What was the difference, and how did you think about reducing the price point with the technology?
Well, the technology is unavoidable. I think we just need to adopt it and use it the best way we possibly can. And I always embrace technology. I suppose it's nothing new for me. And thinking how to solve a problem, democratize coaching, make it more accessible. I find that technology was solution. I work with the coaches that qualified. They obviously charge their hourly rate, and there's time associated with it. So that was probably variable that would stay the same. So what else can I do to make that impact and a technology provide a solution? So being able to, I suppose, connect coaches with executives and leaders in organization and reduce that time involved in preparation and all that admin, which quite often takes almost as much time as a coaching, but really focus on the coaching.
Got it. So delivering a really poignant solution, come in, run the coaching, and then you can move on to another client. Understood.
That's generally where the efficiencies are found with tech. It's in the
Operation.
admin or the repetitive tasks, that low value tasks effectively for the expert doing them.
Yeah, spot on, Anthony. Coaching, obviously, we couldn't reduce, that's the way real thing happens. How to reduce those repetitive tasks and make it easier for, I suppose, coaches on the other side to just turn up essentially and have everything ready for them before and after, but also to be able to, people on the other side, to support them. So they need to worry about all these things that they need to do in between sessions as well, and support them on that journey.
When you started thinking about the solution right at the beginning, what was the first step for you? I'd like to ask this question because everyone's got a different take on first step. You're obviously coming from a non-technical background. What was the first step? Was it trying to write out your ideas on paper? Was it engaging with people in your network? What was that first step that you took?
Research. I did quite a bit of research. Who are companies that are providing similar solutions? And I find the number of those probably not in Australia, but internationally. So there's quite a few in US, UK, Germany, like Europe. But I haven't found any in Australia. So probably spent about 2 months researching. So I started very small and I started building with like a quite excessive spreadsheet and see what they do well and what potentially can I learn from it and do even better. And then they started building from there. So it took a lot longer than I thought, like 2 months journey, just kind of get idea.
Mhm.
Is it possible? Like, should I be embarking on that journey at all? Yeah.
During the research, what was your intent? Was it to understand the business model? Was it to understand the service delivery? Was it to look at competitors to see how they were doing things, replicate, find something unique you could do differently? Or was it just gathering information in the early stage?
Mm. Yeah, it was quite intentional. A business model, obviously, sort of see how they operate. And quite a few companies, like 4 or 5 that I use as a research, are similar, but there are some differences. Um, and then a service offering, so what they offer as a service, and so identifying based on that some areas where I potentially could do better, and it's kind of and what that better might be, and how that might look like. Let's say in a possible solution, how that might look like in reality.
Got it. So as you went through that journey, and it was that 2-month little process of the research, understand the business model, how competitors are operating, what that service delivery model could look like, where did you get to? Did you put together a business plan? Did you put together a bunch of PowerPoints in terms of a concept? What was your step after that to represent the idea and concepts?
Yeah, it's a PowerPoint actually. It is something that I'm accustomed to. So I thought I've researched quite a few areas, and it's been like it seems that, when you embark on something new, particularly in technology, like there are some solutions out there that say rather than learning new system, I've been using PowerPoint. It's very easy for me to create and potentially more so kind of visualize for myself how that might look like. So there's this concept and idea, but how that might look like, and I think it's only then that I become a little bit more real when I kind of start putting slides and how a solution might look like, and then sort of additional questions through how everything in the back of the solution, how to connect everything so it works.
Mhm.
So I was and that was actually quite insightful journey, and it took me perhaps 4 weeks just going back and forward, so deleting, moving slides, adding things. I needed this information. I need this solution to be able to get this, and but yeah, but PowerPoint worked well for me.
Got it. Sometimes that visual component is important. So if you can visualize a few things, put some dot points together, it can quite help. Question for you around the PowerPoint. If you were to think back to that PowerPoint, when did you do that? How long ago?
Oh well, it was
Yeah.
probably September last year.
Okay, so not too far away. Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So where you are now with your second iteration of products, how close is it aligned to that PowerPoint, or has it changed significantly over the journey?
Well, it's definitely become better. I learned along the way, so I'm not touch expert, and even working on it, I had to use Google as a dictionary just to being able to interpret some of the terminology and how to explain and articulate it. Because I suppose to get where I'm now, it's not just about idea in my head, but how to articulate that idea to developer. Because what I might think, observe, and picture might be very different from developer perspective. And I find I spend quite a bit of time on that space. It's very close. The skeleton of the solution, that the web app is very close to where I started. Then certainly the developer will added additional features that
Mhm.
were really beneficial.
Perfect. That's a good summary of how you might approach it. Because when designing or getting something into your head, we have to obviously write it down, draw some pictures, get some things going, get the juices flowing. That's a good place to start. In terms of the At what point did you feel comfortable to have a conversation with the development group or start approaching
Oh,
the
was that
technical areas?
PowerPoint for version 1 or version 2?
So version 2, that's version
Version 2.
2. So yeah. So version 1 is very simple, like, well, I learned a lot from that experience, and perhaps that learning it's beneficial because I got a bit clear picture, and I realized I need to spend more time in preparing and making sure tick a number of boxes rather than, I want to design this, and let's do it next week.
And what was the PowerPoint for, version 1 or 2? I think it was version 1.
So definitely, sort of first version like had only a few slides, and a second version. But it was quite robust, but it had 100 slides, and it's being very sort of
Oh, wow.
specific with quite a few explanations and a point and notes, so kind of be able to track the development. So I find, and that was my learning from the first one. I made all these changes, but then I forgot why I needed this.
It can happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I learn. I don't know if it's hard or good way, but I learn it in a way to, really being just thinking this is draft, and then just be comfortable adding notes and adding sort of any changes and iteration. So it's been, but yeah, quite a few slides at the end.
Did you take that through with some stakeholders before you approached the development team, or did you take it straight to the development team and get them to then put their spin on it, or did they just use it as is? A couple questions there.
Yeah, actually, I took it to developers straight away, and kind of we started a conversation, and it wasn't an hour conversation, so it's a set of discussions how that might look like, and it's some of the things that I might kind of envision to do from developers' perspective. There might be different solution, and it's been sort of, and I think that's really important, like in those conversations with developers, because we come across some, I suppose, for me, obstacles that I didn't know how to address. I knew what that might look like, but through those conversations, there's some really good suggestions that actually make the solution even better, better than I envisioned. So yeah, went straight to developer, and I kind of spent quite a bit of time explaining and the step by step. I'm pretty sure it wasn't exciting on the other side to look through like a number of slides, but yeah, you have to go through it, I guess.
Oh, it's useful coming from a developer's perspective to have thought out the product and the screens and the information that you want, because otherwise we have to spend all the time to extract all of that from you and get to the same result. So if you can put it down in a presentation or a hand draw it or any method, you're kickstarting the development. Like, it shouldn't take as long to get started, and it should be much easier to get the information across and get them to understand what you're trying to achieve if you do that.
That's an interesting point. That's what I learned, sort of, kind of, and I started asking my question in second iteration. What question I might be asked by developer? What next? And I really spent a time on a branding and a color, and it's just kind of to avoid confusion, because being my own solution, particularly at the start, it's very easy to forget that all these small things might not make much sense to person on the other side, and rather than correcting it later. So, and that was always on my mind. So for every screen, um, what question I might be asked by developer, or based on this, and trying to address here. So yeah, it was good learning, but longer we worked, the process got quicker. I think because I learned as well to ask myself those questions more often. So when I present something, it was, I suppose, much easier to understand. And as Andrew said, not going back and forward and checking with me, what did you mean by this? What about this?
Yep.
One of the things that people maybe don't understand about development is it's a process, and it's very granular, the amount of detail that you need to deliver a solution. I think coming in it from a non-technical perspective, you would have learned that across the journey as you started presenting screens and there's gaps. What else would a developer ask? Because in the end, it's generally like a system like yours is probably a workflow state. It's a process-driven system which has inputs, outputs, triggers new events, etc. But you need to consider every step in that process. How did you get into that mindset coming from a non-technical perspective? What caused you to get into that mindset? It's an important piece for people to think about if they're coming into this world.
Yeah, like this is interesting. I said I learned it about like working in a space. I'm a big picture person, so kind of like idea. I know what kind of that might look like, but I think it's actually that conversation with the developer. So well, it seems like particularly the start, which is going back and forward, asking like a question, sort of what I can do on my side to make this process easier. Not that I was getting frustrated. So why developers asking all these questions? Wouldn't they guess this? Like, not thinking like, well, they probably don't have the same idea as I do. So kind of then I wrote that and kind of start thinking, well, they're probably asking because they don't know the answer. Otherwise they wouldn't ask. So, and it kind of like, actually one session we caught up is kind of how to make that process easier, what to think to provide in the first time, as much information and clarity, and like as you mentioned, being really granular, like not just assuming like well, like previous slide, like you would guess, like you would have idea, like in a theme and how that might look like, but not like moving beyond that and being like specific in every area.
Yeah, it is a bit of a jump for people that aren't in the space. But when you get down to delivery, they're more specific, the less chance of errors and building things that don't make sense and then rework and all of the above.
You don't want to be assuming things as a developer. You're not like the domain expert, or you can ask as many questions as you want to understand as much as possible. It's still a drop in the ocean of the amount of information or knowledge we would have in the area compared to the person we're dealing with, like yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess sometimes like I need to remember the developers work on other projects as well. So to remembering everything that I want, as I said, not assuming. And I think that was learning for me.
Mhm.
Move away from assuming, and it's better provide extra information than less. And that's where we kind of started. And like at the beginning, like I was thinking, am I bombarding with too much information the developer? Like not at all. And it's actually, as you said, more information is better. So it doesn't let me kind of guessing, sort of, yeah. So yeah, I learned along the way not to assume and really sort of trying to put myself in the shoes of a person that is not involved in the industry, not involved in the area I work on. I have more experience because coming from that tech background. And yeah, it took some time, but if I knew at the start, like the process would be smoother at the start, like as well. So I think perhaps there's not those checkpoints that to remind people what do you need to think about how to approach this before starting on a journey, and perhaps even just same as my experience. I can imagine not tech people who be building tech is kind of tech technology would perhaps approach it the
Mm.
same, like a big idea. And I kind of,
Mhm.
how would you know? You're a developer, kind of guess it, make it look like the way I want it, but not explaining. So yeah, obviously I don't need that like a checklist now. Hopefully not. Like everything is working, and I think the second iteration works just perfectly, meets all what I need. But I think like and I think I couldn't find any resources that maybe in your company that might be a little bit different.
Mm.
Your resources, not just about what is needed, but maybe that whole approach to developing solution.
Mm. I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit there. And it becomes that transfer of knowledge and understanding how to transfer knowledge. It's one of the biggest challenges in the space of technology. How do you transfer knowledge from somebody that doesn't understand what they need to transfer? So what you don't know, you don't know. How do you educate them on that process? And you need to be guided by your technical team partners, whatever they look like, to really work on that piece. We speak to a number of different, especially in non-tech is our focus, because we see that the non-techs like yourself have a lot of IP, a lot to bring to the world, to the domain, to whatever you're doing to solve new problems. But in effect, one of the key problems in the space is that domain transfer. How do you transfer that knowledge to a development team, to a product consultant, to an innovation consultant, whoever you engage first, to ensure that you're going to get a product that's going to serve what you're thinking about, your current market, your clients, etc., and in a clean and efficient way. Not an easy solution to solve for. Like in terms of product, it's about 86% of all projects fail in tech. So if you look at businesses, it's pretty on par. 90% fail. It's a similar thing. And fail means over time, over budget, wrong solution. Wrong solution is that whole domain knowledge transfer, information sharing piece. It's one of the biggest issues in the space that everyone's looking to solve for.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, that was my experience as well.
Mm.
In kind of, you
Mhm.
probably kind of say it directly or indirectly through conversation. It's just how to explain my expertise and my knowledge, how that works to a person that got no idea, about, let's say, executive and leadership coaching and what clients need and how that happens on a kind of more granular level. And I probably didn't understand then, that's what I need to do, kind of make it simple and easy, so a person to understand what the business is all about and how that might look like for them to be able to kind of get, I suppose, a little bit better picture in their head how that might look like in the solution as well.
Makes sense. When you went about selecting development team or tech teams to work with, what was the approach? What were you looking for? What did you find worked for you?
Did you go with a different team for the second build?
Yes. Yes. Not that like first team didn't do well. I think perhaps, I didn't receive as much guidance as you need to be able to kind of, perhaps it was that, I'm not sure if I maybe on both sides that assumption. So I was assuming the team on the other side is assuming, and perhaps that's why it didn't work as well. And that was learning itself. So that's why the second team, it was a very sort of different approach, sort of rather like moving from assuming to understanding. And then the second team actually got on back. I asked for references, and the team that I still working with on a couple of things, got really good references on businesses that are not on the same level, but the solution is fairly similar. And yeah, and I called a couple of CEOs and asked them sort of just to get sort of their ideas. How did they go about? And the person that, the business manager or developers team that got really good feedback from CEOs. Actually, that was my sort of tipping point. I went with them.
Was it a different pitch from the two different groups on how they would approach the solution and the build? Or is it more because you went through what you went through in the first one, you sort of knew what questions to ask of the second team?
Well, I think it's probably more me than actually the developer team, like in a first iteration. So being sort of perhaps I went into conversation too laissez-faire, I know what I want, and it kind of developers that would just make do miracle and make it happen.
If only it was that easy.
And And it's probably like now when I think it's probably more me rather than developers because I perhaps didn't spend enough time to put a little bit more thought to it and more on a granular level and be able, like Anthony, as you said, ask right questions before making decisions. So yeah, it's yeah. Why didn't it work? Yeah, it's probably me because I just didn't know what I was doing, I guess.
Yep. I think that's probably the biggest thing we've seen is people think making software is easy. Where if you're not planning right, it's like if you're building a house, if you don't build the foundations right, the house isn't going to be what you want it to be or grow to what you need it to grow to if you want that renovation in some point in time. But software is, as Andrew said earlier, it's very systematic, very detailed and granular. So unless you get all that detail, you can build the wrong thing very, very easily. And the interpretation of one word, if both sides are not clear on what that word means, can shift the entire product. You accidentally say not instead of no, or like just throw that in there by accident and then shifted everything.
What I'd ask is, or what I find that works with non-techs like yourself is teams need to be willing and open to learn. Like from my perspective, you need to walk into a relationship with someone like yourself and want to understand your business, the research you've done in the background, what the thinking is, what the models you're thinking are, and bring concepts and ideas to the table. That is the only approach in my mind. Every business that we've spoken to, you might say it's you, but if you're guided in a way where you were questions and people kept continuously digging in on how you operate, what the current state is, what the future state vision is, what's the minimum we need to get to from where we are now to getting some people on the platform, what's those quick wins? If you can really dig in and spend the time in that headspace and that thinking space, it doesn't matter if you're technical or not. I think it's more that willingness to close the gap and making sure we're delivering the right solution or a solution's really going to add value to the people that are actually coming on board. So in your world, it's the coaches and the executives. Then you've got obviously administration component. So I think that is probably the biggest challenge that non-techs have with tech teams is sometimes techs like things put on a plate. And we've got techs in our business to do that, but we front that, right? So as consultants, we're really getting to know the business and understanding it. There's no if, buts ways of doing this else. You cannot do it any other way and do it right any other way. That's our finding over the journey, but that's how we would definitely approach it with someone like yourself. But the more you know, the better it is for people like us too. Yeah.
Yeah, like I probably with first developers, first group, I probably it was obviously I assumed, but like to your point, Andrew, perhaps I didn't get enough questions as well, like on the other side, to how to get that better idea and how to like you mentioned, kind of building it from scratch and building it like it's sustainable, as Anthony mentioned. You're not kind of building something that you're not able to expand, and like how that's what I perhaps in the first iteration of what I was thinking with the second one, like how are we going to sort of start so we're able to add and expand and not kind of reinventing the wheel, but being able to have, I suppose, solution that we can add the building block on it down the track, and it really works well. So like we completed, and so I'm already working on a couple of things that I wanted to add on the web app, and I was even surprised that like the developer team like, oh yeah, like this how long is going to take? I said, oh, that's pretty quick. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like it might be coming through a kind of we started really well from the start to the capability on that level, so it's much easier to add additional features to it.
Yeah, the biggest hurdle in development is getting to that, what people coin the minimum viable. So that product that you can deploy and get users. beyond that, it's little incremental improvement, provided you're built on a good foundation. It should be quite easy after that to incrementally evolve your project. So that's one of the things. It's always getting to MVP is the biggest challenge for anybody. Yeah.
It's like
Beyond that,
rearranging your furniture in the house at that point.
correct. Yeah. Because it
It
should
takes you
be
quite a while
easier.
to get to the point,
Yeah.
to get to that.
It does. So in terms of if you were to go back to yourself right at the beginning, what would you have done differently if you're going on this journey advising someone that's maybe in your shoes? Let's take it back 12 months, thinking about a concept, an idea. Where would you have started this time round?
Well, definitely have a more robust conversation with developers, which kind of want to learn to sort of explain the business, like you mentioned, really how that might look like. Even some of the terminology, like who's a client, who's customer, like who's executive coach, who's leadership coach, who's a sponsor client. Even just sometimes that terminology can be confusing. So really spending time and how that might look like. And that's probably my biggest learning, and perhaps those sort of some checkpoints and reminders along the way. I would definitely invite even more questions from a tech team to be able to sort of anything that I say that doesn't make sense, like, to kind of bring in a conversation and perhaps offering other solution on a particular part of the problem that might be better, which I experienced along the way. How, like, something that I thought that this might work, but it worked even better based on a suggestion from a tech team. That was quite beneficial. So, yeah, one thing that I would do differently, even before anything, is just to spend more time and explaining the business and get into those details, but explaining business to a person that does not much of business, and be very specific and I guess, and then not just sort of explaining, but spend a time thinking how to articulate that to other person so they get right information.
It makes a lot of sense. Let's go to future. The coaching center. What's the vision? What's the goal? What are you trying to achieve? You obviously built product, got to an MVP. You're moving. Where do you want to take it over the next 24 months?
Yeah. Well, we focus on the Australian market, so we work with Australian enterprises, large organizations. So hopefully, and I think to be able to support some smaller businesses that's a plan down the track, because I see, and I get involved in a small to medium businesses one way or another, sometimes even in the coaching. They are quite often get left behind because they might not be able to afford some of those areas to kind of look in that space. So small to medium businesses support them, and I support their leaders to I guess, drive business and motivate people and engage them and look out for productivity. And then, moving internationally. So I was very, I suppose, didn't want to buy too much, so focus on Australian market and in particular areas and sectors, and then expand. So the plan is big vision. So next year to expand into small to medium businesses. Then after they go internationally. And along the way will be, I guess we can't avoid it, nowadays AI. So looking to involve AI coaching as a part of the solution. I already started a conversation with someone who's got like something in developing that space. So I just don't want to rush through. And like, what we talked about before, I learned something from my experience in building their web app. So, and this is will be not completely new, but quite different. So, yeah. So that's So, small to medium businesses, international, and AI coaching.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. the SME market is quite a large market if you can build a model that is achievable for them. The AI piece could actually make it viable if you've got a hybrid model. I feel like this AI will come into coaching in a big way, but I still feel like you still need that one-on-one. So there has to be a hybrid model. I don't know if you just want to talk to a machine. Yeah, and it's someone to connect to. So when you're in coaching, there's moments where you're in a crappy place and you need just someone to bring you out of that and have a connection with and just share a story that their experiences. I find that some great coaches share good stories too. So yes, they're asking great questions, but they're also sharing the stories about their life, their journey. And I find that brings a bit of that closes the gap between the coach and the coachee in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. And I read an article not a while ago, like a couple of weeks ago, and it just like the coaching could actually void that gap because we use technology more, hybrid working, remote working, void that gap for human connections. Because like middle management is reducing, we have more people managing more people, more leaders managing more people, so they don't have enough time to be able to support them. So, but that's my view as well. So, leadership coaching and executive coaching connection will gap, and AI coaching, it's quite different. I think we still need that human connection, and so while I see AI coaching might be that SME space, perhaps kind of combination to reduce, I suppose, entry point and make it a little bit more palatable for SME to be able to invest. Might not get Ferrari, but it still get Mercedes, so that's still okay.
Yeah, if they can provide help and at a more easier scale, then why not?
Brilliant, Slaven. Thank you for coming on, sharing your experience, your journey. I really appreciate you taking the time. If anyone wants to find out more about the Coaching Centre, it's just thecoachingcentre.com.au. Go check them out. There's a little bit of a spiel and website there to have a bit of a look. And if someone wants to engage with you, how do they do that? Can they just do that from the website or reach out and connect? What's the approach?
Yeah, website is usually good way. There's connect that form on a website, so that's probably easier. I'm also quite active on LinkedIn, so people, if they want to connect there, they're more than happy to connect there as well.
Beautiful. No, thank you, Slaven. I really appreciate you joining us on the DevReady Podcast. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Anthony. I really enjoyed it.